Welcome to the Women Money Business Podcast. I'm Dr. Pretty, and today I've got with me Katerina Hayes. So Katrina's journey is really awe-inspiring, and I think probably the first time on the podcast we're actually going to be talking quite seriously about when things don't go right in business, because that's not often spoken about. I definitely feel that, and I know that Katerina has also sort of mentioned that as well. So Katerina, could you tell the listeners a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, basically?
Yeah, thank you so much, Prezi. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
You're
It's really
welcome.
honored to actually share my story, and hopefully that story will inspire someone. And maybe someone need to hear that, maybe they are in the stage of their lives where they going through kind of hardships or some uncertainty in their lives. And I wish I can just spark a little bit of that hope and that don't ever give up. Originally, I come from Ukraine, and I came from very, I would say, basic family, because that time we were actually sometimes haven't had a food or even clothes. And my mom, I grew up in quite creative entrepreneurship family. My mom worked in 3 jobs, and the same time she was make our clothes whatever we want, because we simply couldn't afford to actually buy cool stuff, but actually we was making ourselves. From age of 14, I already was making my own designs and selling to my classmates. So I was making my first money. And we kind of grew up in our family. We grew up with the kind of mindset of consistent creativity, that we were inventing, okay, how we can solve this problem and how we can get out of it, how we can provide the bread or food for a family. And when I finished school, I went to study to economics and banking, which is I haven't finished simply because we haven't had the money to pay for my education. And that time my dad, he was living in Sakhalin Island up north of Japan, which is completely different part of the world. And he sent me, actually not him, my stepmom, she sent me a ticket, one-way ticket, going all the way from Ukraine to Sakhalin Island. And this is where kind of journey unfolds, where I'm coming from very small city to Sakhalin, Yuzhno Sakhalin, and it was like a cultural shock, the way of the high level of life. And I was real, like I thought, like, really, can you live like that? So, and I kind of, I've been reinventing myself over the years. And one of my, I would say, aspirations, I went to study law when I was in Yuzhno Sakhalin, and then I had to work. And then I ditched my education, and I went to work at one of them, like a sport bar. I was one of the admin, and then I realized that I couldn't provide myself with I have to pay, to rent flats or room. And then I found out about oil and gas projects, and at that time I haven't had education that was required. I wasn't speak much of English, to be honest. And but then I thought, well, if I'll go to that project, which is in oil and gas, up north of Sakhalin Island, I will be provided with a place to stay, food, and actually I can work. So that was my strategy. I got into oil and gas project simply by convincing one of my interviewer. He was head of translation department, and I convinced him to give me 1 month to prove him that he can speak English. And that time it was specific position for secretary interpreter in horizontal direct drilling. So it was actually very technical, very specific, working with the drilling team who was drilling the pipes across the Chava Bay for oil and gas. And it was like, normal person would be probably say, like, really, like, you don't have education, you don't speak English, trying to translate reports from English to Russian, from Russian to English, about the horizontal direct drilling. Like, you must be crazy. But simply, I had no place to return, and I was literally on the street that time. And I said, look, just give me a chance. Literally next day, I was heading 14 hours to the up north of Sakhalin Island, on the middle of the nowhere. It was minus maybe 25, 28.
Wow.
And I met my basically my first international teams. They were Germans. Yeah, so this is my career started in oil and gas, and I kept my word. I pested my engineering team because I would say I work from 7 till 7, and then from 7 till midnight I would stay with the team and try to. And it was before the Google. There
Yeah.
was no, like even I had vocabulary, and then I thought to myself like how I wasn't even fired after 1 week of all these things. So I kind of had this idea that I need to find a way to find out how I can actually get myself into that quickly. And I was literally, I think it was 18 hours. I would kind of try to push this information, which I had no idea about. And I was asking my team to, and my manager, who was actually, he spoke Russian, but he never spoke Russian to me, only in English. And I would just say, Karsten, could you please explain me this all these what things was going on, because I had no idea. So he would just stand me near the drawings and he would explain me, do you understand? I'm like, mm-mm. He's like, okay, all over again. So that kind of, I never had plan B. I only had plan A. And that actually helped me to say, okay, I'm not going to take no for an answer. And that has led me through all my darkest moments of my life, because as we know, life is going up and down. We are winning, we are losing, we are failing, we are reinventing ourselves. And this is something that I had to accept through my life. That is the normal process. And it's making life probably interesting. So that job took me, because I worked so hard, I got to know everyone in the department, and then from the department to another department. And then one of the Australian companies, they poached me and asked me to work for them as on the different project, same area but different project. And I spent with them next probably year and a half actually working as a site administrator. Again, I level up in my English skills. I still had no education, but I had that very strong feeling that I have no choice. I just have to do this because, well, I have nothing else to do, to be honest. And then over the time I worked in oil and gas project for Exxon, and we at that time it was like we built full plant from ground up. Even though my job was engaging with a lot of departments, I got known so many people, and I tried to understand how each department is working, from the project controls to control management, document control, QA/QC, health and safety, engineering. And then again, we worked from 7 till 7. Then we went to dinner, we went to gym, and then I was curious, okay, what is next for me? I want to go and study to Canada. And so then I find out that there is the team who went to study to Canada from the Exxon Exxon company, and they were given the sponsorship and the scholarship, and they went for 2 years. And I'm like, well, actually I would love to do that, but I don't know how. And I made a contact with my night shift team who worked for commissioning. So they were responsible for installation of the all equipment. And I'm like, okay, what is the difference between electrical? That time I had no idea about the technicalities, like in depth. And I wanted to understand, okay, what the electricians do, what the instrumentation do, what mechanics do. And I just simply, after my day shift, I would have a dinner, some gym, and I would go to the night shift. I get all my safety clearance, and I see turbines, I see these compressors, I see these like huge machines that are, being installed and run and tested. And I'm like, wow, I don't know why, but I thought I would like to pursue that career. And I've seen one of the women, she was only few who were actually, she was a senior, and she was from the mechanical background. She came from Houston at the time, and she was running all these turbines. And I'm like, that's just so cool, like you see so many women, even though like back in, that time in Russia, there was a lot of women engineers as well. So we don't have this, or like, actually there were a lot of women engineers and on the higher positions as well, but it was so inspirational. Then I thought I need to find the ways to go and study. So after around 4 years I was saving money, and then I went to study to Canada. And so this is kind of was my dream come true. And then I come back to actually I moved to Scotland 2008, where I had to start all over again because my ex-husband I met back in Sakhalin Island. I couldn't find a job because my qualifications and experience wasn't that valid. So I had to start all over again. And I had to build myself back to position where I got the job offshore in oil and gas as instrumentation technician. And I couldn't find a job. So I had to subcontract myself, had to open the company and subcontract myself for those projects, which is I spent around 8 years. And it's kind of spanned all these, it wasn't easy. Again, it was like a lot of that, taking no for an answer and finding the ways in the, I would say, in the system, how to navigate and get from the A to B. It wasn't easy, of course. And at some point I had to, give up my job because simply I was burned down and I had an anxiety. I had that time I already was working with the therapist to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm suffering. And I just had mental breakdown one morning. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was like going between the shifts, like going from the night to day, and I just had completely meltdown. And I had to ask, just can you please medevac me and take me home, because I literally like I couldn't stay, and I thought like I'm not going to come back again.
Wow. So in terms of, because you mentioned, so obviously you've been in that corporate kind of environment in terms of oil and the gas, and then you've obviously gone to and lived in different countries and just sort of built up resilience. And when people have told you no, you've just sort of seen it as like not as a final, that I just have to just keep trying. When you've then come to the UK, and obviously you've unfortunately had the breakdown, was that the moment when you then went to sort of set up your own company in terms of the business side of things that you started to do? Because did you set up your own is it Naked Kimchi, the brand?
So it was just before, it was 1 year, like I would say, not around, almost 1 year before the Naked Kimchi and Co. So what happened is kind of realized that I started to work with a therapist, and I tried to, okay, why do I, why I'm not making different goal in my life, why I need to go to this male dominated industry to prove myself and like, my worth, and, being like competitive with, with men. Because, and I think to understanding that allowed me to actually inner growth as well. But at the same time, it's allowed me to get back to myself, to actually to get know myself better. And when I started going through that transition, actually I realized that I'm in the place where I don't really want to be. And it was just try to compensate from the compensational place rather than from a place of joy and happiness. And but it wasn't everything bad, of course. Like I enjoyed my work, like I genuinely enjoyed offshore. We had amazing team. With all teams I worked in, it's been amazing. It's been simply amazing. So but that break point for me, it was like, okay, something that is not working for me. I don't see the future. I don't see myself to making a career in oil and gas. So, and then I had like, I started to study like a coaching, I become like a coach. I was doing like a part-time coaching. And with one of the projects that I, just before the Naked Kimchi, I had actually launched deep tech, cleaning water from nanomicroplastic. And that project, it was for 5 months, to realizing that I need to have like 8 million pre-seed before I even take from the product to market fit stage, because that it was specific filtration, helping clean the water from all the plastic and microplastic that is unfortunately is floating around in our seas and waters, and we drink and etc. So So I had to kind of slow down that project. And then I thought, well, I did so much work on that with my CTO. He's an analytical chemist. We actually work on the same project back in Kazakhstan. So I kind of did like offshore Italian Kazakhstan project as well, because I spoke language, and it's just simply connections. And then I thought, okay, shall I do something simple, something that I can do without 20 pounds? So
Yeah, without lots of money.
I launched a Naked Kimchi and Co from my kitchen, and over I would say I quit my job, and I said to myself, okay, this is where I'm going to do kimchi. I will reinvent my dad's recipe, and it's something that is very dear to my heart. Is my cultural heritage in fermentation. So, and it comes to the gut health. It comes to the sustainability of the food, and is actually apparently I find out that actually it's luxury here, but for us it was common sense to growing up and survive, because we like simply would preserve the food. And so that story I created that based on my heritage, based on my tradition, and it was such a joy to share it with people, because like I love to share food. Yeah, so I took it from, I would say, from my kitchen, then to kind of going through the expansion. And unfortunately, I had to liquidate company simply for various reasons. Even though like we won 2 stars, a Great Taste Awards, I won. Actually, it was like what it was,
Yeah,
food
yeah.
and drink business woman awards from Business Woman Awards, Great Britain, a Scottish Age. And I think at that time, I was like, I completely couldn't manage my energy operation, because I've been doing so many things, mostly myself. I had some setbacks with the bad hires that affected everything else, but simply I couldn't rest. And it happened in the same time where the Ukrainian Russian war happened. So I was like extra on the cortisol like for probably 2 years to try to employ refugees and give them jobs. And I was like, I wasn't really thinking about myself. And that actually hit me so hard. And by the on the end of 2024, that I completely like I thought like I can't. It's affecting my health to the point where doctors said, if you're going to keep going like that, you will more likely develop some cancer or something like that.
Yes.
That and then I thought like, you know what? I'm just like I can't physically lift. I can't, because I had some surgery as well. So yeah, so it's kind of affected me mentally, physically, but in same time, the most biggest fear I had is to disappoint people, because the awards when I was winning, I had the commitment to deliver, and I had to face. Now I understand why people actually when they lose business or something goes wrong, like when they so much invested in money, they actually going to like they actually suicidal. Actually, I've had that kind of thoughts in my like few. I would say that I how I can let people down. They put so much hope. They put so I took it so personal, and then I started to like I spoke with few people and they said, look, we have businesses liquidating every day or something like that. It's not big deal. I'm like, what do you mean it's not big deal? Like I put my reputation, I put my everything, and I took it like it took me maybe like 6 months. I was like, just shoot me, like just I just want to hide. I don't want to deal with it. And it was I would say darkest, one of the darkest moments that really really affected me. And it took me some, I would say I'm still recovering as well.
Yeah. I think like I'm really passionate about failure. It's something that I talk about a lot, especially on my LinkedIn and things. And later on this year, actually doing a TEDx on failure in a digital world. So when you spoke about that, in terms of, I don't see failure as failure. I think failure is the wrong word. I see it as growth, and I see it as resilience, a bit building. And I think every time you fail, you move up a level. And I think we are taught that if something goes wrong, it's bad. So, and I always sort of speak about that when you're at school, and it's conditioned from, for me, I think it's conditioned from school. If you get 6 out of 10, you don't get celebrated for the 6 that you got right. So you didn't get the four right, you got 4 wrong. But then what about the 6 that you got right? Like, that's not rewarded. You just penalised for the 4 that you've got wrong. And then that puts it into you, this is my opinion, I just think that puts you already in that mindset, like you've just said, I've let these people down. But then you've done so much. You're like, yes, unfortunately this has happened, but everything you've done before that, you don't forget that, those were really good things that you did. It's just that this little thing, this thing you're letting shadow all the good and hard work that you've done. And I think people don't talk about their failures often enough. And especially when we're in such a social media digital world, we only see, majority of the time, people's highlight reels, and it's not real. Like, in my opinion, that is not the way the world works. This is the way the world works, where things go wrong, you go into a dark place, and then you think that it's only you think you're a failure because you don't see everybody else talking about it. You just see those other people saying, I started my business, now I'm a millionaire, I've done that and I've got this much money. There's not often that you see people like yourself or me say, do you know what? It was really shit and I lost all that money and I've just let people down. I've let myself down because ultimately, yes, you let people down. You feel like you're letting people down, but how can you recover from feeling that you've let yourself down? And I think that requires so much inner work. But then I genuinely feel each time you fail, a new level is unlocked in your brain. And I know the science behind that as well, that I know that when you fail, your brain rewires and it makes you better, and at the time, you'll know more than anybody at the time, you're thinking, I don't care about that, I don't care about I'm failing, it's going to rewire, it's going to get better, help me right now. I think sort of having been able to reframe, like, okay, what have I learned from what's happened? How am I going to sort of not stop it happening in the future? Because I don't feel you can ever stop yourself from failing, but it's what you define as failure, and whether you call it failure or do you say, well, that didn't go to plan, this is what I'm going to do instead. Moving sort of along your journey, then I know that we're working on an AI app on, and this, I'm really excited to hear about this in terms of the burnout side of things, because burnout is so current. It's very much a buzzword at the moment, and it has been, I think, for a couple of years. But I do feel it's symbolic of life at the moment. We are so busy, we are so time poor, but we want it all. And at the same time, we've now got AI to sort of, and whether it's good or bad, it's everybody's different. It's the worst thing, it's the best thing. But I think if you can use it to help you in your life and to your advantage, you again unlock a new level. So could you tell us a little bit about is it called Be Brio? Is that right?
Yeah. So I would like to touch points on, when things goes wrong. And this is where, again, it's interesting that, actually transition to the burnout. Burnout is literally make anyone, specifically founder, to actually get paralyzed. And I just, because nevertheless, like, I had so many setbacks in my life, and each failure is new opportunity. And I knew that, like, was my mantra. I'm like, fail forward. I always said to myself, fail forward. And this is just another plus in your experience, that something things, and it's very important to realize what things goes wrong and do something about it, or things to understand, like, actually there was, like, a lot of things economically, psychologically, politically happening wrong, that you have to really reassess a lot of things. And that time I just had to reassess a lot of things with my personal, the way I feel, the mistakes what I made, with bad hires, with not my operation wasn't tuned the way it's supposed to be, lacking of the investment in the marketing, but also doing everything myself, not learning to delegate. That kind of get me into the where I realized that, actually, you know what, I just need a break. Because But then I had to ask myself, do I have the capacity to actually go and keep going and investing money into it? And I kind of get into the point where I don't have money to reinvest. And I'm just, been running on the empty tank for a few years that I neglected myself, my body, I'm burned down completely, that I'm not able to, you know, being and this is where my co-founder came. So I'm the fractional CFO for the Bibrio, and I'm working, I would say, the part-time part on the Bibrio and the part-time on my own consultancy on the business development. So the Bibrio came from, actually, this is the story of the burnout of the two founders, where we wanted to reinvent AI that help founders like us to actually be more productive and optimize the work and find the how we can test other businesses through kind of our technology. Is still in the process, is still in the making, and hopefully we had to take it a pause because we had to get money in the bank basically to support our families. So we kind of went to the consultancy part, but so this is the only the reasons that we actually kind of pausing with the Bibrio. But people can sign up and they can leave the credentials and we can follow up with them. And the point was to we with all this technology, actually there is the huge problem of technology leading to the burn down, because we are like, even we are not working, our brain is still active through the apps, through the phones, through consistent messages. And my lesson would be like, I'm still recovering from my burn down, and I think I need like sometimes like 1 year of sleep and
Yeah.
get off gadgets for maybe a month, like a detox. And I think this is what would be the future, where you actually simply lock your phone, computer, and everything, and just go on the detox. And the way is technology actually affecting our brains, young brains of our children, is to creating neurodiverse. I wouldn't say illnesses, but I would say probably disability in terms of the focus, like a lack of focus, lack of attention, that is affecting everything else. And digestive systems, because it's like the way our brain is, like we not wired to live that kind of very intense lives, where in the past we would just go away and we haven't had a phone, we have to write a letter and then wait for the letter to come, which is now everything is so accessible, and we just don't have that pause. Like I think I haven't had an hour a day where I could just pause it, and I have
Mm.
to force myself to say, you know what, I have to lock my phone for 1 hour, 2 hour. Try to not get my phone or my computer before the bed, because then it will affect my sleep. And actually, uh, with the statistics and the research that how people will look like with the big thumbs and the the longer neck, it's real. And I think this is kind of is the curse and blessing, because you know new luxury, it will be probably no technology, the places where you actually have human interactions,
Connection, yeah.
which has become the luxury now, because people, like on the specific, on the high end clients, they don't want to interact with the bots. So it's interesting time we live in. And
I think because, like you say, because of AI, because of how fast paced the world is, there's so much value now put on just having normal, basic human connection, which is sad in a way because it's so basic. And I think when you touch on the children aspect of it, I think the next generations of children, it's quite worrying because of, number one, the communication skills will more or less be affected because they're not used to talking to people. They're very much used to talking to a screen, or just if they're playing games or something, they can't read those cues that maybe you and I and previous generations can read. From when you sort of, from someone, you talk to somebody, you can read their body language, you can see what their face is doing, and you can kind of read those emotional cues. Whereas like the children of today, because everything's digital and it's behind a screen, they just don't know how to have those conversational skills, unfortunately, unless obviously parents are actively enforcing that at home. And it's quite interesting for you to, yeah, you said that you're, in terms of high end clients, don't want the bots, they want the normal stuff. And then that's now becoming a luxury. Whereas you would think if someone was to say that 20 years ago, that actually luxury will be actually being able to talk to each other without a screen, you probably think what you want about. Whereas now, with the pace that AI is sort of developing, it's, I mean, it's amazing in one respect, but it's quite troublesome for what it means for humans and human connection, really. So it's quite interesting. So what's next, Katrina? Because I know that you obviously with the app, that's we're paused at the moment, but we can still sort of sign up and sort of register for that. And I think you mentioned that you're in the midst of another move.
Yes, yes. So I'm heading to Dubai, to UAE. Um, for the past 4 years, in the same time of everything else what I was doing, I kept building community in Saudi Arabia. And my plan was actually to expand to Saudi Arabia strategically, because 4 years ago I saw this opportunity, and then I thought, why everyone tried to expand to US if you need to think about Middle East? Because I really love politics. I really kind of geopolitics. I follow quite a lot of in-depth strategies to understand, what kind of shift of the economics is going to be, and where is the opportunity going to raise. So I would say 4 years ago, before the kimchi, I was afraid to move. But my friends, they said, like, you have to move now. But then I kind of delayed and delayed. So this time I'm like, okay, a company is liquidated. Like, what shall I do? What kind of skill set and capital I have to start from zero? And was through the partnership that I already made with the wealth management, with companies who provide bespoke um, services for the high net individuals, and all the community I've been building for the past years and years in oil and gas kind of created that social capital that I could leverage. I built strong relationship with some ministries on this in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and some in UAE, but I wasn't concentrating in UAE much. But now, because we have these new news about AI technology and data centers to be built in Abu Dhabi, and of course, like, Abu Dhabi is like managing around 1.7 trillion wealth funds, and they diversified into 6 funds, which is they're looking into the different areas where they invest, and also they had X amount of trillion billion into the foreign assets as well.
Right.
So we're talking about, quite, and the Saudi Arabia, of course, that there is, like, huge markets, and it's still a lot of things that is developing. And my idea was to 4 years ago, and then strengthen now, that everyone who would like to come and rebuild builds with the governments all this kind of a new world. And I'm kind of this is the same feeling like it was golden rush in US. So this is
Okay.
what's happening, the kind of the technology rush in the Middle East, because we had very aggressive, very strong investment from Saudi investment fund of funds, Qatari. So that, like, even for past few years, the Qatar government, they invested into the 5 VC funds that continuously investing into the companies. They attracting, of course, the technologies, new technology and talent to the region. And then I thought, okay, probably it will take me a little bit longer in Scotland to achieve and actually to activate all the network that I already built and bring them more value. I thought, okay, I'll just need to make a very bold move. My family, unfortunately, staying here, but I will be there for next few months to kind of, okay, understanding, okay, what kind of value I can bring. And I was helping also companies for the past, I would say, 1 year, not one, yeah, around 1 year, to help into market entry to Saudi Arabia. I made a partnership with the local companies, and then helping startups to fundraise. All the relationship that I built with investors and founders, creating the databases of that connections that make things simpler for others. So, and now I'm actually just about to sign a few contracts with the space companies who are based in US and UK. They have manufacturing already, and they asked me to hire. They hire me as a fractional business developer to have a presence in UAE and Saudi Arabia. So I will be representing them as being their face and leveraging my technical experience and understanding that is easier for me to kind of tap into health or space tech or any fintech regtech industries, and leverage my connections that I kind of built, and look after the reputation of those companies, which is so important as well. Yeah, so this is kind of my, I would say, ideal picture, and I'm really looking forward to start this journey. And again, I was so grateful to have people around me who I helped, who helped me, that you never know. And I think building those relationships through the years and years, it's allowed me to, I would say, not just reinvent myself, but being able to start all over again. And I would say that without people around you, and it's so hard, so hard to start anything really. And entrepreneurship itself is very lonely.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with amazing people who truly contributing to your success and you contributing to theirs, this is what I think, this is the no technology can replace.
No, you can't. And I think from everything that you've been saying, the biggest theme that comes out to me is sort of the connections that you've made and how those connections have helped you go to, I'm going to say, your next level. And I think it's that, people say your network is your net worth and those kind of things. And although it might be cliche, it is so true that when you've got that good supportive network around you, you don't know at that point in time what in 5 years time that person may know that may then link back to what you're doing, and so on and so forth. And I think, and you've been so fortunate to sort of be around so many different people in different countries, so you've got an international network of people to leverage, which is just phenomenal really. But it's all off the back of you taking the courage to say and put yourself out there and say, I'm going to go and try and learn English in a sector that is so difficult in itself anyway, even if you do know English, to then be like, I want to learn English to do that. And would you have ever imagined the girl that didn't have food and didn't have clothes would be sat here now talking about partnerships with like high net worth in Saudi, in Qatar? Would you have ever imagined that?
It's interesting because I can recall I was around maybe 15 years old, and I was in my city. We were just about 1 year before finishing school, and I was like running, like it was in the square. I was with my friends, with my school friends, and I was saying, one day I'm going to fly a helicopter, and I'm going to I'm going to fly a helicopter to work, and like I'm going to fly to and they said like that's just rubbish, like. So, and then 20 odd years, 17 years after, I'm flying a helicopter for work, but I think it was wrong helicopter. So I think it was the wrong one, but I did flew a
Yeah,
helicopter to work.
I think mine's, yeah.
So I would say that, and I always, and they were like, everyone was saying like, you have this, your head in the clouds. I wouldn't say that, I would imagine specifically this, but I imagined that I actually have more to offer to the world, and I have more to achieve. That for some reason, I think it comes to that our trauma, that when we haven't had nothing, we wanted so badly to do something so well in life, that no matter what, you just kind of you dream. And I think that dream is still, of course, I still dream, and it's just beginning, because I'm like hit the hard bottom, and now getting reinvent myself again, starting from zero, being bold about the decision that yes, I'm taking the risk, and I'm recovering. And I would say that that dream, the girl with the head in the clouds, I'm still I am, and and I'm not going to stop. And I think everyone, like, because again, like, people around you who telling you that it's just rubbish, don't think about it. It's like it's never going to happen. Simply find the people who will believe in you and who will support you. And that genuine support, that genuine connection is so important. And cherish that also, because I don't forget those, like, good things. And I remember that I was in the times of despair, sometimes with food and without the shelter. I had random people in my life, random people who I never even knew. They helped me. And this is kind of, I'm so mindful about that. And I remember it. And every time I'm in a situation that someone need help or someone is struggling, I'm paying forward. And, it's like that kind of thing, that because I remember that time I
You've
had
been there.
nothing. I had
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, yeah.
And random people are just been there for me, and I'm trying to be there for people. And I think that humanity part is so important, that we should be so grateful. And if someone not sharing your dreams, find people who will share your dreams. So
Absolutely,
simple as that. Yeah.
absolutely. I think like everything that you've said sort of resonates with me, but I think that's because I'm entrepreneurial. And I think if you had the same conversation with any entrepreneur, they would be absolutely with you. I think when you speak to people that aren't entrepreneurial, that's when you get that noise as no, don't do that. That's too risky. As entrepreneurs, you are born to take risks. And when you've come from nothing, what's there to lose? Like, you've been to rock bottom. Everything's going to be better than that. So although it might look like really bad to somebody else, you know where you've come from. So you know that you're never going to go back there again. So you're always going to move forward. And I think sort of every trait of an entrepreneur you have is like the resilience. You fail forward, you give back, and your network, and sort of listen, and having the right people around you that are going to empower you and help you grow, and just help with that growth mindset. And I think this, unfortunately, in the world, you've got your growth mindset and you've got the fixed mindset, and those two just don't go together. And if anything, it pulls you back, and sometimes when you're in it, because we're born to have that negative thought and that imposter syndrome, like maybe I can't do it, maybe I'm not good enough. But the minute that you switch up your surroundings with people that are like, yeah, you can do it, and that in itself, like you're saying you had your head in the clouds, but I see that you had a vision. That's how I'm hearing what you're saying. I don't see it as head in the clouds. I think you're aiming for something, and even if you go halfway, your head will be halfway in the clouds. You'll still sort of be in that direction. But unfortunately, the people that are saying those things to you will always, unfortunately, stay at that level, and that's absolutely fine for if they want to stay at that level. But if you're not made or programmed to be at that level, and your level is up here, then you've got to just like you say, find those people that are going to help you grow. Your journey has been so interesting to listen to, Katerina, and I think this is just the start. Like, I know that you've said that you've done this, you've done that, but then this is the new start, and I'm so excited to sort of follow your journey on LinkedIn to see where you go with it, because I'm sure you'll make a success of anything that you do. So thank you so much for sharing everything with us. So if people want to connect with you, just to follow your journey, just speak to you about anything, can we find you on LinkedIn? Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Under Katerina Hayes. Also, you can find me on Instagram under the same.
Same handle, perfect. I'll link those in the show notes as well. So if anybody does want to speak to you,
Thank you
so
so
thank
much.
you so much for today, Katerina. Good luck in the UAE, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pretty. Thank you for your help.